Welcome to Raptorisms over Crystalis episode 8. In this episode, we're finally going to get the Sword of Water, the third of our 4 swords, and we should be able to get the Ball of Water shortly thereafter. And while we're doing all that, I want to talk about the FSOT, the Foreign Service Officer Test, or in other words, that time I tried to become a US diplomat. First, let's take a look in at the game, and as you can see right now, we're in the cave behind the waterfall. Now, the queen told us to come here, and she also gave us the Flute of Lime, which is an item that we can use to unfreeze people who have been frozen into stone. This cave just so happens to have monsters that can turn people into stone, and it's not going to be useful on yourself if you get turned into stone, however, you can use it to help people around you. And here we are, 2 people who have been turned into stone, and if you don't do anything about that, you can't proceed into the next part of the cave. So let's use the Flute of Lime. People of stone return to normal. That's great, they're walking around and you can walk right past them if you want to, but let's talk to them first. I'm saved. And the other one, I heard that a fog lamp was here, but I couldn't find it. I'll look for it in a cave across the river. That'll be a useful hint once we're able to cross rivers, but in order to do that, we need the Sword and Ball of Water. So first things first, let's get the Sword of Water in this cave. The monsters you see in this area are the ones who can turn you into stone, and I really don't stand a chance against them without the Sword of Water, so I'm just going to avoid these guys as much as possible for now and run to the Sword of Water as quickly as I can. It's kind of funny how not too long ago, we were thrilled to finally get the Sword of Fire, but in this stage, it's really kind of useless aside from opening ice walls, so we're running around more or less being incapable of fighting until we get our new sword. This is going to repeat one more time when we're looking for the Sword of Thunder later, and at that time the Sword of Water is going to be kind of useless. Alright, the Sword of Water should not be too much farther, we just need to get past this really narrow passage over here, and it should be right behind this ice wall. Here we are, you now have the Sword of Water. So let's equip that as soon as we can and try to take on some of these monsters. We can relax a little bit and wander through this cave, because there's still one more thing we can do here, and that is find Akahana, who reportedly disappeared into this cave. While we're looking for him, let's talk about why I decided to take the FSOT, the Foreign Service Officer Test. This was about 4 years ago, and it was my 4th year of teaching English in Japan. Around this time, I was thinking about changing careers. My job as an English teacher in Japan was really fun, it was rewarding, I was good at it, I liked almost everything about it, except there was no real career path unless someday I wanted to go into managing English teachers, and that seems like the worst job ever. So I decided if I want to stay in Japan much longer, sure, it's fine to teach English for another year or 2 if I have to, but I should look into doing something that has more of a proper career track. I still hadn't passed the JLPT N1, so I probably couldn't become a translator, although to be perfectly honest, I still don't consider my Japanese level to be high enough for that kind of work. I had a legal background, but I didn't think I wanted to go back to being a lawyer, and even if I did, I thought it would be basically impossible to find a job at a Tokyo law firm without having been in the industry for a long time. So what could I do to let me continue living in a foreign country, to let me continue learning languages, doing all these other things that I like, that might use my legal background but not be a proper lawyer job itself? And then a funny thought crossed my mind. What if, just what if I became a diplomat? I had no idea if that was even remotely feasible, but a quick Google search let me know that in order to become a Foreign Service Officer, which is just the fancy title for a diplomat, I would have to take the FSOT, the Foreign Service Officer Test. The FSOT is a 3-stage exam, and the first 2 stages can be taken from pretty much anywhere in the world, so I figured, why not give it a shot? The first stage of the test is a general knowledge test. It consists of a multiple choice section and an essay section, and the topics can be basically anything. I'd read that the topics were slightly biased towards social studies kinds of topics, such as history, current events, politics, economics, etc., so I brushed up on a lot of that before taking the test, but it turns out that I really didn't need to because I passed that general knowledge multiple choice section very easily. Topics really were all over the place. There were questions about math, science, technology, in addition to all of that social studies stuff, and of the topics that I had studied, I'd say they helped me with maybe 1 or 2 questions at most. So I aced the multiple choice section, but I barely passed the essay section. Both the multiple choice section and the essay section are graded on a curve, and you need to get at least the average score on both sections in order to move on to the second round of the exam. I got the exact average score on the essay section, and that's not necessarily bad, but I thought I would do better, and I'll say 2 things in my defense. First of all, I hadn't had to write a serious essay in years, and second of all, I was recovering from a dislocated pinky, so typing was kind of a bitch. Alright, and it looks like we've run into Akahana, but as you can see, he's been turned into stone. Now, we no longer have the Flute of Lime, that was a one-time use only item, so we need to find something else that might help him. Let's explore this cave a little bit more, and we should be able to find another Flute of Lime. Let's just get past this monster first, and it should be in this treasure box right here. Yep, a new Flute of Lime. Let's just go on a little bit farther and see if there's anything down south. And there's nothing down here anyway. So let's just head back to Akahana, unfreeze him, and get whatever reward we have in store. So let's equip this Flute of Lime. And here we go. People of Stone return to normal. Hey, you're the one who found my statue. I'll give you this, but now we're even. Now you have the shield ring. Akahana is kind of thankless as usual, but at least he's giving us a really good item. With the shield ring, as you can see right now, our defense is 1313 without having it equipped, but once we put it on, our defense is bumped up to 1320. So this is a really good passive item to have on. Right now, it joins the ranks of the gas mask and the rabbit boots as the 3 items that are non-perishable that we can use. And now we're basically done with this cave. So back to the FSOT. The first round of the test was relatively low investment. You do have to pay an examination fee, however, if you actually show up and take the test, they'll refund it to you. Only if you don't show up for some reason and you don't have a good excuse will they keep the money. It's only 3 hours of your time, it's not really going to impact your schedule, you don't really have to study for it, and because they give you a final score, if you failed it the first time, at least you have some idea if you were remotely close and if it's worth taking again. The second round of the test isn't so convenient. At this stage of the test, you have to write several essays about yourself. I forget the exact number, but I believe it was in the ballpark of around 6 or 7. There are several standard qualities that the Department of State wants its diplomats to have, and you have to describe how you embody those various characteristics. On top of that, you have to provide a reference for each essay that you write, and each reference has to back up the content of that essay. You write these essays on your own time, which means that, yes, you can edit them to perfection, but at the same time, it means you can end up putting a lot of time into them. And now, I'm about to take on a fake treasure chest. Here it comes, and as you can see, it's jumping around, it's moving pretty quickly. These guys can be a little tough. However, with the ball of fire, you can get multiple shots in just one charge up, and you can force it back enough times to finally defeat it. But right now, there's nothing I can do because at level 7, apparently I cannot harm it with the Sword of Fire, and I just checked the Sword of Wind and the Sword of Water. Those can't do anything either, so I'm gonna get out of here for now. I'll get the Ball of Water, and I'll come back here when I'm at least level 8. The reason that I want to come back here is that if you can successfully kill these guys, they will drop a lot of money, and with that, we should finally be able to afford all of that good armor in the Portoa armor shop. Alright, so back to the second stage of the FSOT. I have to write all of these essays talking about how I demonstrate all of these amazing qualities that the State Department wants me to have. Things like leadership, communication skills, your usual suspects. Now from my website, I have plenty of experience bragging about myself, but about these issues in particular, I had to think a bit because what experiences do I have in the real world that other people can back up that I can actually talk about? Somehow I ended up coming up with what I thought was a pretty good list of stories I could talk about and have other people back up. I contacted those people, and when they all said they would help me out, I got right to work. And perhaps that's the real diplomat test. Are you good enough at dealing with people that you can get all these random people from all these different parts of your life to come back several years later and say nice things about you? I'll be the first to admit that I'm not the best people person, but somehow or another I was able to put together what I thought were a good set of stories. I don't recall all of my essays, but I remember writing one about how the mayor of my town visited my school when I was an English teacher. I also wrote one about how I got my friend's car back when it was unlawfully repossessed. I wrote about how I organized a political debate at my college. I wrote one essay about how I fought back against an opposing attorney who tried to play dirty with me. I did the best I could, fully realizing that there were definitely other applicants who had much more interesting and grandiose stories than I did. Ultimately, I failed at this stage of the test, and you don't get any feedback for this stage, so I'll never know exactly why. I will note, however, that this was an extremely difficult time to be taking the test. Donald Trump had just gotten into office, and one of the first things he did was freeze the budget for the Department of State. This meant that hiring numbers would be much lower than usual, and with that, it would be much more competitive to get a job. Based on this news, I didn't think it would be worthwhile taking the test again while Trump was president, and later that year, I ended up finding my current Tokyo law firm job, so everything worked out and I never ended up taking the test again. Now let's get the Ball of Water. That is the Sword of Water. You're the legendary one I've waited for. I am Rage, protector of the sacred lime tree. I've stood guard here for over 100 years. I now give you the Ball of Water. I may now sleep in peace knowing the chamber is empty. Enter the tree and protect Messiah. You now have the Ball of Water. So now let's put the Ball of Water to its intended use and build a bridge over a river. So let's build that bridge right here, and we're gonna meet our Messiah. This message is for you, Raptor. Our mission is only beginning. Our time is so short. I will go to Dragonia now. Please catch up with me. As you can see, she came out of the same kind of chamber that we came out of at the very beginning of the game. And now that we have the ball of water, we can build bridges over rivers and do a lot of exploring. So let's start that next time. See you later.